residents at Brightview Senior Living Communities enjoy enhanced possibilities, independence, and choice. Brightview Homedale will offer vibrant senior independent living, assisted living, and memory care services through various daily programs and cultural events, chef-prepared meals, safety and security, transportation, resort-style amenities, and high-quality care. Everything you need is here. Discover more at brightviewhomedale.com. Welcome Center opens in February. Equal housing opportunity.
What's up, fam? On April 27th, the 2024 Black Effect Podcast Festival is taking place at the Pullman Yards in Atlanta. It's going to be a legendary event, so get your tickets now. Our festival partner, Nissan, is back with its Pitch Your Podcast Lounge. Nissan is offering you the opportunity to pitch your dream podcast and share it with its Black Effect Podcast team. So get those podcast ideas ready, because no matter where life takes you, remember that you count on Nissan to dial up the thrill in your adventures.
Tired of endless diets and weight loss struggles? It's time to say goodbye to frustration and hello to results. Introducing Smart Metabolic Burn from Brain MD, your breakthrough solution to fight stubborn body fat. Imagine burning fat, balancing glucose levels, and regulating metabolism in just 12 weeks. This unique 2-in-1 product combines the power of 2 clinically studied ingredients in one revolutionary formula. Berberine, which targets abdominal fat, and OEA, which curbs your appetite. With just 2 capsules a day, Smart Metabolic Burn by Brain MD can kickstart your metabolism, fight stubborn body fat, especially that pesky abdominal fat, and support your weight management journey. And right now, save over 30% on Smart Metabolic Burn at GetSmartBurn.com. The lowest price anywhere. That's GetSmartBurn.com. Don't delay. Transform your life with Smart Metabolic Burn from Brain MD. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Our products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hey everyone, I'm Brian Austin Green.
I'm Shauna Burgess.
And I'm Randy Spelling.
And you are listening to Oldish, an iHeartRadio podcast. Hello everybody. We're back.
What's up, everyone?
We're back for another episode of Oldish. Randy,
hey.
How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm good. How are you two?
Fantastic.
We're really good.
Yes.
Life is beautiful.
I'm primed. I'm ready to discuss all things the brain, anxiety,
right?
depression,
Of course you are.
intrusive thoughts, habits.
You're always ready to discuss these things, Randy.
Always.
I'm actually really excited because of the neurological stuff that I went through. This whole concept of neuroplasticity and what the brain and the body is able to do is I've witnessed it. I saw it. I went from not being able to walk or talk or any of those things to slowly regaining those things. So I'm so excited to get into people that have gone through traumatic brain injury and how that still works.
And for me, I'm super excited about the intrusive thoughts, because that's something that came up for me hardcore with after having a baby. And then through sharing it on social media, I realized just how many people experience these. I wasn't alone. It's normal. But to know there is someone that's been studying it, that's unreal. I can't believe it. I'm super excited about it.
So our guest is, her name is Dr. Caroline Leaf. She's a communication pathologist, audiologist, clinical and cognitive neuroscientist. Since the early 1980s, she's researched the mind-brain connection, the nature of mental health, and the formation of memory. She was one of the first in her field to study how the brain can change, which is called neuroplasticity. We got into that a little bit with directed mind input. She's also the best-selling author of Switch on Your Brain, Think, Learn, Succeed, Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess, and many more. She teaches at academic, medical, and neuroscience conferences and to various audiences around the world. Her passion is to help people see the power of the mind and teach them how to control their thoughts and emotions and learn how to think and find their sense of purpose in life. And we're so grateful and excited, super excited to have her on. Let's get right into it. Dr. Caroline Leaf, thank you so much for being with us.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me.
We've been really excited to have you on for a while. And so here you are. So thank you. I just read the list of your credits, and we're incredibly excited because we all have our own experiences with mental health, with neuroplasticity, with the things that you discuss. Sharna, I know, has had to deal with some of some things on her own. I went through a whole neurological thing at one point. So I'm completely intrigued now by mental health, because when I was younger, I honestly didn't even think about it. You think like, oh, I go to the gym, I work out, I eat right, I take care of myself. The brain is the computer for it all. And when the computer goes haywire, the whole thing goes haywire. And people don't realize that.
Actually, even more than that, it's not the brain, it's the mind that actually controls the whole process.
What's the distinction between those two?
Okay, massive. And I know for thousands of years, philosophers and scientists and researchers have spoken about the fact that the mind and the brain are separate. It's only in the last, honestly, 50 years that they have been collapsed into one. And and the current sort of zeitgeist is mind, brain produces mind. But if you look at the actual science, it's impossible. That doesn't happen. And the most basic way of understanding it is we are here having this conversation, but if we were dead, we couldn't have this conversation, and our brain would basically be disintegrating. So your mind is your aliveness, your sentience, your in science we call it the non-conscious and conscious part of you, and there's a whole sort of structure and a whole science behind that. If you think of another analogy, think of the sky. The sky is all around you. It's all these overlapping fields of energy, and then you've got clouds in the sky. So the mind is the sky, and the clouds would be the thoughts in the sky, and then that is all sort of condensing onto the earth, which would be the brain and interacting with the earth. That's one way of thinking of it. So the mind is separate from the brain, but it works with the brain and the body. So we mustn't just talk brain, we mustn't just talk body. That's and there's been an emphasis, as I said, in the last 40 years to be very neuroreductionistic, which is focusing very narrowly on just the brain. And that's come from the research on the brain, and it's good that we do research, we have to. But it's also shifted how people look at mind. So the brain cannot do anything on its own. It's driven by the mind. So the mind controls our mental aspects and our neurophysiological aspects, if that makes sense.
And then the mind also is what holds all of the memories and all of that, right? So it's kind of like at the point when the brain turns off, when physically you're no longer here anymore, your mind isn't that's completely disconnected. It's like somebody pulling the power plug on the computer, yeah.
It is. And what's interesting about memory is that memories are stored in three places. So you have your representation in the mind, and that could be the equivalent of the cloud in the sky. And then in the body, it's in two places. In the brain, they form the memories cluster into tree-like networks, and in the body, they cluster into hedge-like networks, like a hedge in a garden, in every single cell of our body. And that's why we talk about the embodied mind, the embrained and embodied mind. And it's not top down, it's not brain down, it is forth. And, that's where we've got a lot wrong in the current sort of description and discussion. And I shouldn't say we, because I don't subscribe to that level, that angle of science. And I believe there's more support and scientifically for how I'm explaining it to you now. It's just difficult to visualize because, we talk about mind, how do you describe mind? And people talk about that as being the hard question of science. But actually, it's the easiest question because the mere fact that there's 5 of us in this conversation and how many thousands watching and listening, each and every one of us is able to process a conversation and experience this in different ways. That's mind in action. The fact that each of you is going to ask different questions, each of you is processing what we're saying and discussing and all that kind of stuff, that is mind in action. The fact that you got a child coming, that you've got a history, the way you started the podcast, the way you explained how you've each come into this conversation with your own experiences, that's mind. So mind is all of this collective usness or you-ness or I-ness. And it runs us. It runs us energetically. We've got all the science to show the physical side of it, and it basically it creates our entire wholeness of function.
I love this because it really feels like there's this spiritual consciousness component to this, but it blends with the science. It's not separate from.
No,
what is it that you would say that we've gotten wrong for so long?
Well, I think that's such a great question. And yes, it's very much a spiritual, scientific, science and spirituality are the same thing, two sides of the same coin. So, it's just different words, it's language. We're talking about different, use of words and things like that. But because spirituality has so many different ways you can describe it, and science has so many different ways, but it's two sides of the same coin. Where I believe we got it wrong was around about the mid-90s. Let me step back just a little bit. in the 80s was when I qualified. I've been in the field nearly 40 years now. And when we were trained in the 80s, we were told that the brain couldn't change. So there was also a period for about 30 years where the mind and brain were understood as being these separate but interconnected things, but the interconnectedness was misunderstood. So it was felt that, well, the brain once damaged, that's it, and so if you had some kind of injury or whatever, that's it. You've got to live with that. But that didn't make sense, because if you think of you as a human, think of your own life experiences. You have an experience, it changes you. It changes. You maybe get worse for a while, then you get better, and then you experience and you apply that to your life. You give advice to other people based on your own experiences. You give advice to yourself, and so on. So that thing of the brain not changing, we very soon saw that isn't correct. So I did some of the first neuroplasticity research back in the late 80s, showing that when you actually manage your mind, when you drive and organize your mind or manage your mind, whatever term you want to use, you're going to change the brain. So I showed that. And then by the mid-90s, with the advent of MRI technology, the technology was actually invented back in the 40s, but the actual MRI machinery and so on, by the mid-90s, we could see inside the brain. So we could see that the brain was constantly in a state of flux. And we had EEG, which showed us this kind of thing. So technology showed us that, hey, this brain is changing. And technology of the brain is just so fascinating. So we got caught up in this hype of brain. And we should have, but not at the expense of mind and being a whole person. And that's really what happened. So the whole thing of, everything's about the brain, and the whole shift went towards scientific interpretation of experiments being around, well, when we put this person in the MRI machine and they did this, then this part of their brain lit up, therefore that part of the brain is responsible for that emotion, or this circuit is, and that's been the trend of the research in neuroscience. So even though I am in clinical and research neuroscience, I don't subscribe to that very narrow view that the brain produces the mind. The brain is a responder. Your brain is very complex because your mind is complex, but your mind puts stuff in your brain. Your mind puts stuff in your body, and there's this connection of this network that we call psychoneurobiology. So that makes sense. So where it went wrong was around the mid-90s, I would say it started, and it's just got progressively worse with a very neuroscientific focus. We call it neuroreductionism. And I just want to balance that statement by saying I'm not anti-brain research. I'm in brain research. We have to have advances in neurobiology and neuroscience, but our interpretation has gone backwards. So the science is amazing, but the way people are interpreting the science has become very, very narrow and very limited. And that's where things have gone wrong. And you apply that to mental health, and the evidence is very, very, very clear.
That's so deep, yet it's so confusing at the same time, because now I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, because I've always had a feeling that generations, like, the 40s, the 50s, there came a point where people stopped taking responsibility for choices that they made. And I wonder if that is a direct correlation of, like, they were saying, oh, it's now brain health and all of that. And so they didn't hold the mind so responsible for choices they were making. And they were just saying, oh, it's the way the brain is wired. And
this is how I am.
Yeah.
This is
So they sort of took their own, they took their own responsibility for choices that they made and things that they said and ways they affected others. And they just made it a scientific call of, like, oh no, science is now showing that, I couldn't have made a different choice. This is just the way my brain is wired. And that's not the truth.
You guys both of you have hit, Brian and Randy, both of you have hit the nail on the head, or whatever, however you want to say it, because that's exactly what has happened with the excitement of understanding that, the Human Genome Project and understanding more about the brain. Suddenly it was all about these incredible structures that were just revealing so much to us. And suddenly, you're dancing to your DNA and your free will's disappeared out the door. And that shifted into what we see with our Gen Alpha, Gen Z, the millennials, right up, even Gen X and boomers aren't excluded from this whole zeitgeist of, if you have an emotion and it's disruptive, it's a symptom of a brain disease, or it's a symptom of a chemical imbalance.
Now, how would you relate that to, like, say, alcoholism or depression? I mean,
Or anxiety. Yeah.
Anxiety,
how do you then
depression.
decipher between what is truly brain and then what is mind? When people say, "Oh, I've got a disease, that's why I do this," it's like, do you completely back that, or is there a part of you that's like, that's kind of, there's a bit of a cop out to it, or like you're separating the brain from the mind, and you're not taking responsibility like we were talking about before? What is your sort of view on that?
So you've got to look at the interaction of psychoneurobiology, so mind, brain, body, and they work as a whole. So therefore, number one, you with your mind and your sentience and your brilliance and your I factor, that I like to call it, you are driving how you experience life. Now, if something happens to you, which it does, adverse experiences happen to us, we react. And that is very normal. If you have an adverse experience, you're going to have an adverse reaction. Very normal. It's not about you, it's about you in the world. So your environment plays a massive role. So how you are managing your mind, or how you're experiencing that, is you as a unique individual. So if someone is brutalizing you, or terrible traumas, that's on the extreme, down to sort of less extreme day-to-day struggles and that kind of thing, or just pure bad habits from social media or something like that. All of those are experiences that you as a unique individual have. And you are, with your experiences, that's your mind. Your mind takes that. It's a whole, there's all the electromagnetics and gravitational fields, and there's all that side.
Right.
True and real, and it creates a pattern. So think of the sky of experiences and these clouds. There are patterns, and that pattern is a memory, and is a set of memories, because each experience is a lot of memories, and they cluster to form thoughts, and that then goes in your brain and your body. So you have this mind, body, brain wide network, and then that is whatever we experience as whatever's stronger, whatever's has more emotional clout, and whatever's bigger, the big stuff, whatever will make us think about it more. Whatever we think about more grows, and whatever grows becomes something that drives us, and then it shows up in our life.
Tired of endless diets and weight loss struggles? It's time to say goodbye to frustration and hello to results. Introducing Smart Metabolic Burn from Brain MD, your breakthrough solution to fight stubborn body fat. Imagine burning fat, balancing glucose levels, and regulating metabolism in just 12 weeks. This unique 2-in-1 product combines the power of 2 clinically studied ingredients in one revolutionary formula. Berberine, which targets abdominal fat, and OEA, which curbs your appetite. With just 2 capsules a day, Smart Metabolic Burn by Brain MD can kickstart your metabolism, fight stubborn body fat, especially that pesky abdominal fat, and support your weight management journey. And right now, save over 30% on Smart Metabolic Burn at GetSmartBurn.com. The lowest price anywhere. That's GetSmartBurn.com. Don't delay. Transform your life with Smart Metabolic Burn from Brain MD. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Our products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Kevin Hart here. This basketball season, Chase Freedom Unlimited is helping me cash back the sound system that auto-tunes the game.
Curry from downtown.
Chase Freedom Unlimited. How do you cash back?
Restrictions and limitations apply. Cards are issued by JPMorgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC. A spirit of adventure lives inside of us. Nissan's SUVs have the capabilities to transform your spirit of adventure into actual rubber meets the road, into the wild, true blue, real-life adventure. You just need a Nissan and a plan. Or better yet, just a Nissan. You can hop into a Nissan Rogue and discover what comes next. Don't worry, the Nissan Rogue has your back. Class-exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Just climb in and go. No need to connect your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system of the new 2024 Nissan Rogue. No matter where you roam, you'll stay connected to home. Life is one huge adventure, and every day is a little one. No matter if the ride you're on is big or small, a Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada can elevate your adventure and push your limits to something new. Your next adventure is waiting for you. Get in a Nissan SUV and go. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
Well, I think too, Brian, what you were saying, because you brought up alcoholism,
Yeah.
or so you talk
Addiction,
about addiction, and a lot for so long, addiction's been looked at as a disease, or we could say
as is
depression,
anxiety, depression.
depression,
right?
anxiety. These are diseases. What is your take on that?
Okay, so basically, anxiety, depression, alcoholism, these are not diseases. These are basically signals that something's going on. So if everything goes into the mind, brain, and body, it's going to change the mind, brain, and body. So if you have one of those toxic or abusive or traumatic, whatever experiences, that goes inside of you and it builds inside of you and changes you. So there's a real physical change that feeds back into your mental capacity. So yes, the brain does get changed. Yes, you will have changes in structure. Yes, you do influence gene expression. All this happens, but that's resultant, not causation. It's not the cause. So when we talk about depression, anxiety, addiction, those depression and anxiety are emotions. They're emotional warning signals. They're giving you information. If you look at them, emotions as giving you information, telling you something about what's going on inside of you, it's a sign that you need to pay attention to, and you link that with behaviors like an addictive behavior. So let's say that the emotion is tremendous anxiety, and the addictive behavior is using alcohol or whatever substance. That's a behavior. It's something that's, think of it like this. You feel depressed, you're using alcohol, your perspective is that life sucks, and you'll see I'm holding up 4 fingers, and your body, you've got maybe major, gut reaction, gut issues every time you get triggered, and these signals get triggered. Okay, so these 4 signals, I'm holding up 4 fingers, so emotions, behaviors, bodily sensations, perspective, those are the 4 categories of signals of how we as humans show up every moment of every day. And those signals aren't just random symptoms of disease or random symptoms of something that's, that your brain's produced. What they are is they are signals telling you something about you in that moment. So it's not who you are, it is how you're showing up because of something. So therefore, if you shift your perspective to say, okay, addiction's not a disease like it's been pegged, and that's been disproven, by the way. And anxiety and depression are not diseases, which has also been disproved for years and years, but it's still the general
Right.
today. 95% of people believe depression's chemical imbalance, which is so scientifically incorrect. If you believe that, if that's the perception, that's what that's the language how you'll look at yourself. But the truth is that you go through something, it builds into you, it disrupts brain function. So something that's toxic doesn't build a healthy thought, it builds an unhealthy thought. Something that and that unhealthy thought looks like it's trees in the brain, but not a healthy looking tree. Hedges in your cells of your body, all 37 to 100 trillion. They're not nice hedges, they're full of thorns. And just to give you analogies, that's not a beautiful cloud and sun shining through, it's a storm. So if you think of it like that,
We have Tim Burton garden inside from all of these things going on.
Yeah.
There's a whole garden in response. Now, fortunately, because of neuroplasticity, fortunately or unfortunately, neuroplasticity means that every experience changes everything about me mentally and physically, and therefore it's going to affect how I show up. Neuroplasticity also says, hey, I can look at how I show up and I can reverse engineer the process. I can change it back, because you're a constantly changing being, and the direction of change is something that you do have control over.
Does neuroplasticity, though, only affect the mind, or can it be a part of the brain as well? Because
Mind, brain, and body, all 3.
Okay, all 3.
All 3.
Got it.
Neuroplasticity is misnamed. It should be just plasticity. So you have neuroplasticity, body plasticity, mind plasticity.
It's just the ability of these incredible vessels that we're in to grow and change with the situation and find a new way, basically.
And reverse it, apparently.
And you can
reverse your experiences.
You can reverse engineer. So if you think of it like this, you're making somewhere between 800,000 and 1 million cells every second of every day. So how many we've been talking, that's how many cells you've made. Those cells make your body, your systems, etc., your systems and organ systems, body, etc., including your brain. And so over time, we are constantly making these cells, and your mind, if you're dead, you wouldn't be making them. So your mind is driving these physical changes inside of us. Right. So therefore, we can control that process and can reverse engineer. Before I get to that, I quickly want to answer one part of the question that you asked me earlier, which I didn't get to. How do you distinguish between neurological stuff like traumatic brain injury, or a tumor in your brain, or a head injury if someone's hit you on the head or something like that, a child born into fetal alcohol syndrome. So where there is actual stuff that's happening physically and changing the brain. Those are neurological, which will have physical and mental health manifestations, but they are in a category of their own. People with like learning disabilities, where there's dyspraxias, dyslexias, which is only 2 to 17% of the population. So the concept of ADHD, which is like the way that the concept has crept.
It's like 85% of the population now.
Okay, but the neurological version of that is about 2 to 17%. So therefore, we need to make the distinction between the neurological that has a neurological foundation, and always, whatever's happening to you as a human, there's always the mental aspect. You can't divorce that. But then we have to put that in one side, and you've got to look at that differently to someone who doesn't have a traumatic brain injury, doesn't have a tumor, didn't have whatever, some biological thing that we know of, but they were raped, or they were abused, or they've been in a very, very traumatic relationship of some sort, and it's been consistent and over time and dramatic, and that would have wired that into the brain and would have created changes that will manifest with signals of depression, anxiety, panic attacks, gut issues, heart issues, because there's vulnerability in the hedges, which are the memories in your body, and the trees, which are the memories in your brain. So all of those, and the mind, which are the storm clouds and whatever, all of that alerted your protective mechanisms within your mind, brain, and body, specifically your immune system in your brain and your body, which is full of memory. Your heart's full of memory. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field from bottom up, and it works with the brain to help you to be able to assess all kinds of perceptions within situations. It's not your brain doing it. It's your mind, not even your heart doing it. Your mind is using your heart to evaluate the perceptual information around an experience. And your mind is then pushing your heart to link with the brain, and your brain's doing this, and it's drawing on this from the immune system. And so the mind coordinates all this orchestra. And it's messy, because life is messy. But we have this ability within our mind to step back into what I call the wise mind, which is basically your non-conscious NON, which operates 24/7. It's where your brilliance, your uniqueness, your wisdom, your messes, everything is. But the core of it is wisdom. And we see that wisdom reflected in your biology, in your neurobiology, and your body biology, in that everything about you, down to the cells, up to the organs, heart, etc., is wired for what the scientists, we call it wired for love. So you're wired for survival. So therefore, when things that threaten our survival hit us, like adverse experiences, viruses, and they get into our brain and our body, our immune system and our entire body collectively, coordinated by and driven by the mind, rise up to help you fight, and to help. So your brain, your immune system of your brain and your body doesn't distinguish between something like the COVID virus and an abuse that's happening at work. Both of those are physical structures made of proteins inside your brain, in your body, and in your mind. And so they're all over. So we make it's not always easy to make the distinction. That's how when if you're a good therapist and do a good case history, if you do a proper case history, you ask about if there's been any kind of trauma, whatever. Maybe there's some biological testing done, scans and so on done, just to rule out the possibility of some sort of brain trauma or something like that. But you can't assume that the underlying cause is neurological. So the languaging that's given to the general public is very confusing, because instead of separating, it's been lumped under mental health. In the biomedical model, saying that, mental health is like heart disease, or it's like diabetes, the famous one. And you need insulin for diabetes, you need antidepressants for depression. I mean, it's a story that has been disproved so many times. It's been, provisos have been put in psychiatric textbooks that it's incorrect, but it's still what's trained, and it's still what the general public think. And that's very unfortunate, because it takes hope and choice away from people. And you take hope away from people, you really will cripple the mental health journey.
Absolutely.
I said a lot. Sorry, guys.
No, it's
about this. So.
It's amazing. I mean, I so love your passion for it.
Tired Tired of endless diets and weight loss struggles? It's time to say goodbye to frustration and hello to results. Introducing Smart Metabolic Burn from BrainMD, your breakthrough solution to fight stubborn body fat. Imagine burning fat, balancing glucose levels, and regulating metabolism in just 12 weeks. This unique 2-in-1 product combines the power of 2 clinically studied ingredients in one revolutionary formula. Berberine, which targets abdominal fat, and OEA, which curbs your appetite. With just 2 capsules a day, Smart Metabolic Burn by BrainMD can kickstart your metabolism, fight stubborn body fat, especially that pesky abdominal fat, and support your weight management journey. Right now, save over 30% on Smart Metabolic Burn at GetSmartBurn.com. The lowest price anywhere. That's GetSmartBurn.com. Don't delay. Transform your life with Smart Metabolic Burn from BrainMD. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Our products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Y'all want coffee?
Yeah, an extra hot almond milk mocha latteccino?
We got it black or with milk and sugar.
Oh.
If only everything was as customizable as the TD Cash credit card. It lets you choose how you earn points to help you earn more cashback rewards. It's the Mocha Latteccino of credit cards. Learn more at td.com/cashcard. TD Bank, unexpectedly human. Restrictions apply. See terms and conditions on tdbank.com or visit a TD Bank store for details regarding the rewards program, rates, fees, and other important information. Credit approval required. Offered by TD Bank N.A.
A spirit of adventure lives inside of us. Nissan's SUVs have the capabilities to transform your spirit of adventure into actual rubber meets the road, into the wild, true blue, real-life adventure. You just need a Nissan and a plan. Or better yet, just a Nissan. You can hop into a Nissan Rogue and discover what comes next. Don't worry, the Nissan Rogue has your back. Class-exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Just climb in and go. No need to connect your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system of the new 2024 Nissan Rogue. No matter where you roam, you'll stay connected to home. Life is one huge adventure, and every day is a little one. No matter if the ride you're on is big or small, a Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada can elevate your adventure and push your limits to something new. Your next adventure is waiting for you. Get in a Nissan SUV and go. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
I went through a very interesting, I say neurological, but now I wonder if that's the correct terminology for it. I went through stroke-like symptoms and I had to relearn how to walk, relearn how to talk.
That sounds like in you and neurological. If you had
I
a stroke.
did, but I had in MRIs, there was no physical damage at all that was done to my brain. So I had no traumatic brain injury that the brain had to kind of rewire around and find new pathways for. But for me, it was, I had internal inflammation. I had all sorts of things that were going on in my body. So what you're saying now is making sense, that it's all this connected system. So when I had gut issues, or I had inflammation, or I had these signals and these alarms going off, that the brain, in being part of that system, is what sort of was having problems more so than the mind. The mind was still there. And I always explain to people, the brain fog that I went through was one of the worst parts of the whole thing. When you feel like a prisoner in your body, because I knew in my mind what I wanted to say and how I wanted to react, but my brain couldn't physically conduct my body to do what it is I wanted to do, or say the things that I wanted to say. So I had about a 15-second lag from one to the other. I knew exactly what I wanted to say, how I felt, but then that became, I now have to quiet my mind down a little bit. I'm forced to kind of sit within and listen to things in a different way than I have before, and experience things in a different way. And coming out of it now, what a catalyst for me, just for change. I have a whole different outlook on life because of what you said, these experiences that then reshape the mind as far as like how it now works within the system. It's so fascinating.
You explained that beautifully, and you actually touched on something that's with your example, if I may use your example, you actually explained the wise mind. So we at any one time are operating in our unconscious mind operates 24/7. Your conscious mind only works when you're awake. In between the two, there's the subconscious. That's a doorway, it's a portal, and it's like a waiting room, and it allows things through because we can consciously only handle a little bit, but unconsciously we can handle infinite. Unconscious is when you're asleep or under anesthesia. Okay, so just quick distinction there. In the non-conscious that drives you 24/7, the super intelligent ongoing sort of life force that we have, you have this ability, because your words were, I had to stand back. I had this brain fog. I knew what I could do, but I couldn't do it. There was this like thing in between. So that is your wise mind talking. When I talk about the wise mind, that's that wired full of nature that's in your entire mind, brain, body connection. That's the sky that's clear. And the brain fog is you in a part of that sky, which is a part of an experience where it is all foggy. And you got stuck there. You couldn't get out of it for a moment. And that's the messy mind. So the messy mind is how we go through an experience and how it builds into the mind, brain, and body. But overarching all of that is this wisdom. And if we can tap into that, if we can get to the point where I can sit back, like you said, so beautifully, if I can sit back and re-experience things in a different way, and I've come out of that, what you did was your wise mind was basically helping your messy mind to get more clarity and to sort of disentangle, and that then, as you were doing that then disentangled the networks of your brain and you rebuilt. I mean, I can get into such scientific detail, but we don't, I don't know how deep to go, but you literally disentangle toxic trees. No memory ever goes away. No set of memories, no thoughts are always made of a lot of memories up to thousands. They never go away. But what we can do is we can heal them. So think of a tree that's maybe toxic from whatever maybe stresses you were going through. Think maybe, I'm sure there was, if we dug deeper, we'd find that there was a bunch of reasons that this happened.
Yeah.
Because over time, one of the biggest, quickest places to get affected is heart and blood flow, and that can cause a stroke. So stroke is very, very, very closely related to unmanaged toxic stress. Not in every case, but in the majority of cases, there's a very strong link there. So your way you were able to stand back and observe was your non-conscious mind helping to clear the fog, helping to disentangle, helping to get those toxic trees healthy again by healing the roots, getting the hedges that were all thorny and whatever and messy, you prune them. So that's what your wise mind is working with your messy mind to do. And that's what we have as humans and our ability. Now, when we tell someone, hey, Brian, you are depressed because you have a brain disease, let me give you a diagnosis and a drug, that's not going to solve your problem. It'll make you feel good for a time because it numbs your emotions. But it doesn't resolve the fact that it's also putting you at increased risk for another stroke because of just the nature of that drug. But it hasn't solved the problem. Your hand is still on the burning stove. You still need to solve that. And that's a lifelong journey of us resolving, okay, this happened in my life. The vulnerability was created. Constant pressure weakened the blood vessels and an aneurysm formed or whatever formed, and you had a stroke and you had certain neurons that died in your brain, which can regrow. But whatever, you created, not you, and I don't want to put you in a position where you, and I'm using you as an example, and I hope you don't mind.
No, it's fine. I use myself as an example all the time. So
we make ourselves vulnerable, and we don't know this. This is not being, it's being told to people, but not enough. And it's not a blame game. It's not a responsibility that you bad and whatever. It is a situation of, hey, let's give knowledge to each other. Let's help each other understand that this relationship between life, the toxic stress it causes, and unmanaged toxic stress makes us so vulnerable. And it's not, and a disease label doesn't fix that. It actually has been shown by the research, mine plus others, that it will make you more vulnerable. It'll make you feel worse. It extends it. It makes you a lifelong patient with other issues that you didn't need to become. So if we could have a way of standing back like you did with your life and observing and reconstructing and reverse engineering, as you picked up when I mentioned that, reverse engineering, then we can start using a wise mind to manage a messy mind.
Interesting.
I think something that you just said, I'm wondering how people feel about this, because when people identify with a disease, and I've seen this play out both ways. Some people will read in Google or they'll go to a doctor, they get a diagnosis, and they feel a sense of solace, or at least validation. Okay, now I understand. Now I'm categorized. Now this makes sense. I have this thing. And a lot of people, they identify with the diagnosis, and then that is their identification. I am this, as opposed to observing something that's going on and looking deeper. And I don't know which one is right or wrong, but I'm curious your take on this, because it sounds like from what you just said, when someone identifies with a disease and that becomes part of their identity, I imagine the neural networks that build around that identification and the hedges, as you say, that get made in the garden, that's a lot of trimming that you have to do after all that, right?
It is. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because basically, in a nutshell, when you identify with that, you're building this overarching mindset. So it's a network that is how you get stuck in it. This is how you look at your life, that there's something wrong with me. I've got this, I am a diseased person. And the research shows that it actually makes things worse. So what it is, it's like a gift. I understand. To get a diagnosis, it is a relief initially, because it's okay, that makes sense. Now I understand why. But the problem is that it's an empty gift for two reasons. Initially, it feels, phew, but you open the gift, inside there's nothing. Now what? And that's what happens with the situation. So then people think, now what? And then people's self-identity goes crazy. We see this in the research I do, because we use QEEG, and which is a really efficient way, alongside psychological measures and blood biomarkers and all kinds of, we look at a whole pattern, never just at one thing. Most important is the person's story. We will see that reduces, like there's parts of your brain that will fire up with energy, electromagnetic energy, when we have identity is good. When it's not good, when we're identifying with the diagnosis, it drops. It actually goes almost like a flat line. And that then has that kind of energy pattern, then is a flow through, it's just a representation of our heart, body. It's a representation of the whole embodied experience. So what we want to rather do is see that label, it's like addiction, bipolar, not as a diagnosis in the sense of cardiac disease or a stroke being a diagnosis. So think of a stroke or cardiac disease or diabetes, beautiful model for the physical, because we can actually do a test. We can see that there's a problem with the pancreas producing insulin. In terms of diabetes, we can see, there's physical evidence of a stroke. There's all kinds of cardiovascular disease. There's ways of testing. In other words, we can track the symptoms to a biological cause through various types of testing, and we can target a intervention. Works for the body and the brain physically. It doesn't work for your mental experience. You may have to use that model for the side effects of what have happened, because lots of trauma and so on will lead to stroke-like effects or cardiovascular issues or gut issues, and you have to address those. But that's just you're addressing the outcome or the result. We still have to deal with what the cause is. So instead of to say to someone, you have bipolar depression, the assumption of a diagnosis is, there is an underlying biological cause, and if I target that, I'll be better. That's the whole chemical imbalance. And that is not true. It's disproved, and it's medical battery, basically. And it's not that it's intentional. Doctors and psychiatrists, in the majority, don't want to do that. They're trying to help their patients. So most of my friends are in this field. So it's not. But the problem is, is a doctor gets a 3-week rotation on mind. I've spent 38 years in the field. I have 4 degrees in the field. You can't know. I couldn't go into heart surgery, even though I've done part medicine in my degree. So in other words, how can someone who's had a 3-week rotation even understand the mind? Yet the primary care physician is the first person that people go to, where it's very often where the main diagnoses come from. Then they get referred to psychiatrists and so on. So the whole cycle gets set up. So rather than seeing it as a diagnosis, see it as a description of signals. And if you reclassify, that shifts your psychoneurobiology, activates your wise mind, and gets you into the state that Brian was explaining earlier on. Okay, well, I'm showing up with these signals in my life. I'm having these extreme mood swings. What are the triggers? And if I'm having these extreme mood swings, how's it showing up in my body? How's it affecting my perception? How's it affecting how my other behaviors? How often is that happening? What is the pattern? And you start working that out, and then you deconstruct, and then you reconstruct. And that process takes at least 9 weeks, at least, and sometimes multiple cycles of 9 weeks. But we're talking about breaking down a thought pattern and building a new one and turning it into a habit. And that doesn't, which is something that's actually useful for you.
It's 21 days, right? To build a new habit.
21 days does a lot, but if you stop there, it's a danger zone. It's called pretty much the danger zone, because that's where after that, if you stop there, your chances of dipping are huge, and that's where people get stuck and go into cycles and blame themselves even more, all that kind of thing. Sorry, I swallowed wrong there.
I agree. From coaching people for 16, 17 years, I tried all methods of one-off sessions, 1 month, 2 months, and really what I found is 6 months of working with people is sustainable for them to make changes and change thought patterns to where they actually show up and feel differently. And everyone wants this quick fix of a weekend seminar or something, but it just doesn't stick. It just doesn't. They feel good for a period of time, and then they drop right back into their default patterning.
Exactly. That's exactly what is happening. So what myself and my team have been looking at for myself in my research for 40 years and my team for the last 10 years, we've been looking at this whole thing of how do habits form. We publish all kinds of things. We've got a publication coming out this month. In fact, another one. Basically, it takes at least 9 weeks. So your first 21 days is going to be a whole deconstruction process. And I know, Sharna, you wanted to ask about the reverse engineering. I think that was what you mentioned. I heard you mention that in one of the comments.
I actually want to ask you about intrusive thoughts, but we'll get to that after you're done with this bit.
9 weeks, Sharna.
Okay. 9 weeks.
9 weeks or 9 months?
9 months.
Yeah. Well, 9 months.
9 months. Yeah.
So basically, you're quite right. I mean, 9 weeks is your minimum. So we see 3 cycles of 21. The first 21 is a very interactive, going from the warning signals, how I'm showing up, and finding that thought pattern and the details of the memories of that thought pattern right down to the source, and then getting to a process of acceptance and then reconstructing that in a way that, how do you want this to play out into your future? So it's happened. How do I reconceptualize this? Now that's a processing thing. We have to do that. And if you don't actually ever change the network. So if you just take a positive affirmation and slap it on, or you just do a quick fix technique, or you just do a CBT technique once, or you do get into a habit of getting meditations, there's nothing wrong with any of those. But if you use them as quick fixes, they don't actually work in the long run and can be very demoralizing. So what you've got to do is go through a planned and guided process daily. And for the first 21 days, it takes anything from 15 to 30 minutes a day of going through a very specific plan and guided way about how that information gets in and out of your brain. So what is this whole neuroplasticity thing? And then your second 42 days, it's almost like in your first 21 days, you find this messy thing and you clean it up and give it, plant food and heal the roots. And just to give you the gardening analogy, trim the hedges. But at this point at day 21, which is the danger zone, that new, healthier version of the thought is tiny. In the deconstructing and pruning and all that stuff, it got really small. Because it work. And
it's
now
really fragile, I would assume.
Fragile, it's vulnerable, and so easily can you slip back. And then it's frustrating because you remember what you did, because it never goes away, that work, but it's not accessible. So you imagine a forest full of trillions of experiences, each tree being an experience. If it's this big and there's all these big, you're not going to use it, which goes to your point that you were making, Randy, about your clients not doing things in a short period of time. So basically the second 42 days is a stabilization where you are watering and growing and adding energy actively to that. And there's dips and flows. There's a whole healing journey in the 63 days. My next book that I'm actually writing at the moment is in terms of this actual healing journey, probably the first active scientifically. Do you know James Clear? What's that book? The Atomic Habits.
Yes.
This is the real science behind, how this actually works, because we've done now extensive research. Okay, so it's 63 days minimum, give or take 59, 66. I mean, I'm just giving you the more or less, it's 9 weeks. But if you've had something like really traumatic, like some of my patients had been through years of trauma and abuse, you're not going to heal that in one cycle. It's going to take probably 6, maybe 7 to over 2-3 years. And then while that's happening and a bunch of other stuff comes up, so we're talking about lifestyles here. We're talking about a minimum. If you have like a bad habit, you've got into, like, let's say that you scroll social media too much and get thrown off by other people's lives. They'll probably take you, maybe one cycle to get rid of, potentially depending on how invested you have been in that process. But if it's something like you've been in a really abusive marriage, maybe for like 5 years, there's a good chance that you're going to, a lot of narcissism and that sort of thing, good chance you're going to need 5 or 6 cycles before you're starting to feel, because each thing, there's so many parts to it, like a tree has roots that connect.
I imagine people listening going, oh my gosh, that's me.
Yeah.
5 or 6 cycles. But I really hope that those listening know it's possible. I mean, that's what you're saying, right? Doctor, you're saying it's possible.
Well, it's not. It's possible, but it's actually scientifically evident. There's evidence, and you yourselves, without even knowing about what the systems that I've developed and so on. Everyone listening, you've gone through processes of healing naturally. All I've done is taken what you've naturally experienced, that you've got through. Because depression, for example, as a signal, it has a natural evolution. So generally, we get through stuff. We are way more resilient than we've been told in our current, fragile mind. We're not fragile and broken. We're very strong. We bounce back. The reason a lot of people don't bounce back is because they have been told that they can't. And you tell someone they can't, and you build that into their psyche, it blocks the ability to have hope. And you take hope from someone, like I said in the beginning, that's the huge issue. So in going through 9 weeks, because we have quick fix mentality, people want to feel good now. You will actually feel good each time you go through. This is a system that I've developed. It's called the neurocycle. Each time which is basically just the name I give in the 5 steps that your brain goes through, which is a hugely complex process that I've simplified into a very simple process that your mind, brain, body connection goes through in doing this 9-week thing. But essentially, each time you do it, each time you apply this, it gets easier and easier and easier. So you will feel motivated as you're going along. The other point is that you are, because of neuroplasticity, or the plasticity of the mind-brain body connection, you're changing whether you like it or not. So the whole key here is you're either changing in the right or the wrong directions. You're either getting worse or you can choose to get better. So you can direct your neuroplasticity or you can let it become chaos, because neuroplasticity is happening whether you like it or not. So here, I'm offering people a lifestyle of organized, mind-directed neuroplasticity.
Looking for a healthy, natural mood boost? Boost your health and happiness with Happy Saffron Plus by Brain MD, the 3-in-1 formula for a better you. Happy Saffron Plus was developed by Dr. Daniel Amen, a double board certified psychiatrist and world-renowned leader in brain and mental health. It contains a mix of the most potent saffron, curcumin, and zinc, 3 clinically studied ingredients proven to improve mood, help support your memory, and decrease stress. Happy Saffron Plus is changing lives. Join the thousands already experiencing a happier, healthier lifestyle. Get Happy Saffron Plus with a special offer at gethappytoday.com, where you'll find the lowest price available anywhere. That's gethappytoday.com. Happy Saffron Plus. Make your brain and body happy. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Our products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Y'all want coffee?
Yeah, an extra hot almond milk mocha latte chino.
We got it black or with milk and sugar.
Oh.
If only everything was as customizable as the TD Cash credit card. It lets you choose how you earn points to help you earn more cashback rewards. It's the mocha latte chino of credit cards. Learn more at td.com/cashcard. TD Bank, unexpectedly human. Restrictions apply. See terms and conditions on tdbank.com or visit a TD Bank store for details regarding the rewards program, rates, fees, and other important information. Credit approval required. Offered by TD Bank N.A.
A spirit of adventure lives inside of us. Nissan's SUVs have the capabilities to transform your spirit of adventure into actual rubber-meets-the-road, into the wild, true blue, real-life adventure. You just need a Nissan and a plan. Or better yet, just a Nissan. You can hop into a Nissan Rogue and discover what comes next. Don't worry, the Nissan Rogue has your back. Class-exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Just climb in and go. No need to connect your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system of the new 2024 Nissan Rogue. No matter where you roam, you'll stay connected to home. Life is one huge adventure, and every day is a little one. No matter if the ride you're on is big or small, a Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada can elevate your adventure and push your limits to something new. Your next adventure is waiting for you. Get in a Nissan SUV and go. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
I just want to ask, a lot of people experience dark intrusive thoughts or just intrusive thoughts and a varying of different shades and colors. I did not really understand or notice them until after I had a baby, and suddenly they were dark and they were constant of all the things that could go wrong with him. I thought I was alone. Social media, one of the beautiful sides of it, I realized I wasn't. But I developed, I guess, in a way, my own tools of trying to navigate through them, but they certainly come back every now and then. Well, they're always there. They come in waves of varying degrees. But my question is, what are they? Why do we get them? And what do you think is the process of trying to manage them? And can you even eliminate them?
I'm so glad you asked this question. Okay, excellent question. Okay, intrusive thoughts, pretty much every single human has them. They're so normal, and they're so much part of our messy mind, and they're so much part of what we experience in life. So number one, they're totally and utterly normal, and they will come in stages. So certain life events like having a baby, being triggered by various things, going through, being whatever's going on in our lives, we can have periods of time where we have more problem with them than not. Second thing is, see them as your best friend, because an intrusive thought is not something bad that you want to suppress. It is something that's moving from that wise part of your non-conscious mind that I was explaining earlier, and it's been in the waiting room, and it's filled with information about something that's disruptive in your life that needs attention. So the reason it's intrusive is because it is your best friend knocking on your door saying, hey, I saw you're not feeling well today. I'm texting you. I'm coming to fetch you. I'm here. I'm there. I'm not going to leave you alone. I care enough about you to keep on invading until I help you get through this. And that's what your intrusive thoughts are doing. Intrusive thoughts are, if we embrace them, we will actually find that they contain the information that we need. Instead of running from them, we embrace them. And when you embrace them, you get control over them, and then you can go through a process of finding out what's the content of them. So, for example, you explaining about your, having fears around your son getting so many things that can go wrong with the child.
They would be like general, what if I accidentally give him too much medicine, to like, what if I threw him down these weird things where your brain tells, what if you throw him down the stairs? I'm like, I'd never fucking throw my kid down the stairs. Exactly. This weird thought comes in my head, and it's horrendous. And I felt so much guilt, like there was something wrong with me.
Sorry.
But then these other women tell me that no, they've had these same wild things.
So that example,
what is that?
Right? That example, because I get the too much medicine, but when you're at the top of the stairs and you're walking down, you're like, what if I just throw him down the stairs?
My body involuntarily throws him down. That's a wild thought to have.
Where does that come from?
So glad you guys ask amazing questions. Okay, so 95%, and I'll answer this as quickly as I can. So 95% of what we're exposed to, even more probably, is going into the non-conscious and bypassing the conscious mind. So we're only conscious of about 1 to 5%. So in your experience of life, you've watched movies, you've read books, you've heard stories, and the things that really stood out to you got stuck. So when you had your child, for example, in this example over here, something that you saw somewhere down the line popped up, and yes, you would never do it. So it's not you; it's something that's come into our conscious mind from the zeitgeist that we've been absorbing. So our non-conscious mind, this is how we are. We absorb. In order to survive, we have to take in everything in our non-conscious, in our non-conscious filters, and then stuff that we don't need. There's a way of eliminating certain really big threats, but certain things get stuck. They get entangled, and those are the ones that your non-conscious mind, your wise part of your non-conscious mind, finds, puts in the waiting room of the subconscious, and then they get triggered by certain things. And when they get triggered, it's just you don't have to feel guilty about this, but you didn't know. So it's a situation. I'm experiencing this. This is crazy. Okay, this is one of those things that's come from something in my non-conscious that I didn't even know was there. So in that, you can then say, okay, what's so ridiculous? I'm going to get rid of it, because you'd never do it. So that's where it's we have, and the thing is, if we don't like to think of politics and think of how people get so worked up and all that kind of thing, if you think of all of that, that's what the general zeitgeist is being built into us. And if we don't have checks in place, checks and balances and things in place, and understand that, if you have these things coming up and these reactions, if we don't know how to discern or become aware that this is not necessarily who I am, this is potentially part of something I've read or heard, and it hit me, and I didn't quite, filter it out yet, and it's now being filtered through, and I need to deal with it. If you just push it back down, it'll still worry you. But if you say, this is not who I am, this is some nonsense I've read, you can actually eliminate it.
Oh, amazing. That's so helpful, because there's some of the thoughts, and my approach ended up being, because I tried the running away from them and making them go away. That obviously didn't work. So then I did the whole, okay, I would say, thank you, universe, for bringing this to my attention. I see, I understand, I'll be aware. And so that was my way of saying, I see you, I accept this, I will never let this happen. But it's so nice that I can have the horrible stairs incident and go, that's ridiculous. That's not me. No, thank you so much. Right. That's what you're saying, right?
What I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Sometimes the intrusive thought will tell you, oh, this is just, if you analyze like you did, it'll tell you that, oh, this is probably from some nonsense because it's so not me. You can distinguish. Right. And then and then others said, oh, okay, well, maybe this worry about medicine. Okay, well, that's a very real thing. So let me learn more. How can I, what is really worrying me? You just dive deep and get some skills and knowledge to make sure that doesn't happen. So it's kind of making things that are so scary, not so scary.
I love that.
Or, more control.
Oh my God. It's so helpful.
Yeah, I could have this conversation literally for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
For people anywhere that want to read books, listen, I know you have a podcast. I know you have things going on. What ways are there for people to get in touch with you?
Thank you. My social media page is all my social media pages are Dr. Caroline Leaf. We actually have an app called the Neurocycle app. It's on iTunes, Google Play, web version. And there I literally walk you through all this stuff and empower you to empower yourself. So that's a great start. I have lots of books too. How to help a child clean up their mental mess. I've got 19 books in 24 languages.
You have 19 books. Okay.
Wow.
40 years.
Maybe it's time for me to write one. Caroline, thank you so much for being here with us and answering our questions. And such an amazing.
Joining us.
I honestly, I hope you can come back at some point, because like I said, we can do this for hours. So
much to get into. I love it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the advice. This has been invaluable for me.
Oh, thank you so much. I've loved it. No, I've loved it too. And I loved your questions. I'd love to come back. So it was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Wow,
you guys.
Dude, what a can of worms because now I'm literally going through everything, in my head going, wait, what is actually my fault? What am I not taking responsibility for?
At some point, my eyes did go cross-eyed a little bit of all the words and the explaining of
I'm
things.
sure you're not alone there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was really such an amazing conversation. I've never heard anything in the world of separating mind from body. This whole idea, but her science backing up that these things aren't diseases. Whoa, that's
and it really got
very
my
controversial,
mind,
by the way.
Yeah, it really got my mind wandering, thinking about psychology and the fact that so many things are prescribed to people to help with sort of diseases and things that are going on. And it's the adverse effects that that she was speaking about. You're not letting your mind and you're not letting your mind and your body go through the natural process and then finding their own balance again. You're sort of masking that, which is tough. And that's a tough thing.
And that conversation gets a little dark too. Okay, so why is the narrative that it's a disease and you need this medication that is so very easily prescribed and very quickly prescribed to people?
Yeah, and I'm sure
that ends up becoming a lifelong thing, saying it's a disease, yet the science is out there to say that it's not a disease. It's been disproven. That's dark, man. That's some conspiracy shit that I can't get into.
She was saying that the chemical imbalance has been disproven.
Yeah.
I would love to either have her or find someone else or have them both on talk about that.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, for a long time, and this may have been just my my ideals, I'll admit this, I was a little bit against medication because for so long I didn't see it helping a lot of people. And so they would come to me and they would say, I've been on this medication for 2 years, 5 years, 8 years. I've been doing this and that, and it just hasn't worked. So I think one has to look at why isn't that working? But what I have grown to understand, and I've become a little bit more lax in my viewpoint, is I think medication can help for a period of time. If your nervous system is up here and you're reactive and reacting to everything in your reality, sometimes it helps for a period of time to have something to bring that down. It does numb your emotions some, but it's important for some people to take that edge off, to then be able to handle better the environment around them, to be able to do more self-work, to look at why this is a symptom. How did I get here? What is causing this? And look, nowhere in this am I saying go get off your medication.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Check with your medical professional.
Let's be very clear. Like there are different beliefs and different structures of it. And there's a lot of science backing certain things. And then there are a lot of just people's beliefs and their faith that back a completely different way of dealing with something. We're not here to say that one is right and one is wrong. But I thought this conversation with Caroline is just, it's interesting because it's the science of it all that we don't necessarily get into. I am not researching the science behind things to have a true understanding of that. And so to have someone on like her is like, oh, this is what she does. I mean, this is a completely different view than I've had. But it's definitely food for thought for me. There are parts
You know
of me
what I would,
like,
someone I'd love to have on to discuss around this, and we're talking about medications and all the rest of it, is someone to do the medication versus plant medicine, because plant medicine is known to create new neural pathways and to help you with healing and different things. It's had a lot of success when it comes to anxiety, depression, PTSD. I wonder if there is someone that could chat with us about the differences, the one versus the other, as a really interesting look at it.
We'll get someone for sure, because we've talked about it before.
It's so cool.
I think the through line, no matter what, plant medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, supplements, is you still have to do the inner work around causation. What caused the trauma, right? What caused this in order for these symptoms to be here?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. I think for anyone that is experiencing and, living with anxiety, depression, any of these things, to definitely read into it more and see what more inner work they can do to help themselves along with obviously their medication, but to know that there is more, that it can be reversed and reverse engineered, as Carolyn said. That's so impressive.
Neuroplasticity is happening regardless,
whether you want it to or not.
That was an aha for me, because I sort of wanted to highlight and let people know you're changing regardless. Things are being built regardless. You get to control how you want that built. You get to control how to design your house.
How many thousands of cells are your body reproducing every minute? What was the number she said?
37 to 100 billion, trillion, something wide.
It's a lot.
Wow.
That means literally the action you take now, it's never too late to take action and to start seeing change and reversing things and changing the way you feel about things.
Amazing.
And it's a great, I always say to people, that age is inevitable. Like no matter what you try and do to counteract it and feel better and look, you are going to age. There is no way around that. Now I know you age in way more ways than one.
I love this. I'm going to let you guys know next time we meet how I've been designing the house. Just with that thought that I'm growing, the cells are changing no matter what. How can I guide that? I'm going to run with that and see what happens.
You're going to run with it? I love
it.
it.
Run with it.
All right.
Run with it.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Guys, I loved this conversation. I loved this episode.
It was amazing.
Let us know what you thought of this.
Yes. Let us know, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yes, you guys are amazing. Make sure you guys go and follow us on Instagram at oldishpod. And you can also go and leave us a message at our own hotline, which is 855-OLDISH-3.
Make sure and write us a review. Leave us 5 stars if you loved it. Leave us 5 stars if you didn't.
We love 5 stars. We love 5 stars.
Yeah.
Give
We
us
like
all
5
the
stars.
Yeah. See you
All
next
right.
week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week, everyone.
Residents at Brightview Senior Living Communities enjoy enhanced possibilities, independence, and choice. Brightview Homedale will offer vibrant senior independent living, assisted living, and memory care services through various daily programs and cultural events, chef-prepared meals, safety and security, transportation, resort-style amenities, and high-quality care. Everything you need is here. Discover more at brightviewhomedale.com. Welcome Center opens in February. Equal housing opportunity.
Am I doing the right thing with my finances? Am I saving enough? Can I buy a house? Am I paying too much in taxes? Will I be able to retire? Putting a financial plan together feels impossible. What if I told you there was another way? Take Facet's free financial wellness quiz to get your score and a snapshot of your current financial health. Visit Facet.com now and discover your financial wellness score today. That's FACET.com.
This ad is sponsored by Facet. Facet Wealth Incorporated is an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities, nor is it investment, legal, or tax advice.
Tired of endless diets and weight loss struggles? It's time to say goodbye to frustration and hello to results. Introducing Smart Metabolic Burn from BrainMD, your breakthrough solution to fight stubborn body fat. Imagine burning fat, balancing glucose levels, and regulating metabolism in just 12 weeks. This unique 2-in-1 product combines the power of 2 clinically studied ingredients in one revolutionary formula. Berberine, which targets abdominal fat, and OEA, which curbs your appetite. With just 2 capsules a day, Smart Metabolic Burn by BrainMD can kickstart your metabolism, fight stubborn body fat, especially that pesky abdominal fat, and support your weight management journey. Right now, save over 30% on Smart Metabolic Burn at GetSmartBurn.com. The lowest price anywhere. That's GetSmartBurn.com. Don't delay. Transform your life with Smart Metabolic Burn from BrainMD. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Our products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.